The hidden crisis of clothing. Waste. How fast fashion is choking the planet. Are you aware that your trendy wardrobe might be contributing to an environmental catastrophe? Fast fashion's allure masks a dark reality. The relentless cycle of production and disposal is devastating ecosystems and burdening developing nations with toxic waste. It's time to confront the uncomfortable truth behind our clothing choices. We're often told that donating used clothing is a responsible act, a form of recycling that benefits those in need. However, this narrative is dangerously misleading. Only a fraction, approximately 10–15% of donated clothing is actually resold within the countries where it's given. The vast majority is shipped overseas, primarily to African nations like Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria, under the guise of charitable second-hand clothing. This system, far from being charitable, functions as a waste export industry. Wealthy nations are effectively offloading their textile surplus onto poorer countries that lack the infrastructure and resources to manage it. This practice perpetuates a cycle of dependency and environmental degradation, masking the true cost of our consumption habits. In Accra, Ghana, the Kantamanto market stands as a stark symbol of this global crisis. Each week, it receives an overwhelming influx of approximately 15 million garments, primarily from the US, UK, and Europe. Local traders purchase these bales, hoping to salvage and resell the clothing. However, a staggering 40% of the clothing is deemed unsellable, damaged, stained, outdated, or simply unsuitable for the local climate and culture. This results in mountains of textile waste that clog streets, overwhelm landfills, and pollute waterways. The market, once envisioned as an opportunity for affordable fashion, has morphed into a crushing environmental and social burden, exposing the dark underbelly of fast fashion's global reach. The situation is not just about waste. It's about the dignity and health of the people who live and work in these conditions. The fashion industry's environmental impact is staggering. It's now the second largest consumer of water globally, contributing significantly to water scarcity and pollution. Furthermore, it's responsible for up to 10% of global carbon emissions, exacerbating climate change. The production of clothing involves the use of toxic dyes, pesticides, especially in cotton farming, and synthetic fibers like polyester. These synthetic fibers shed microplastics into our oceans with every wash, contributing to marine pollution and potentially entering the food chain. When clothes are dumped or incinerated, they release methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and other hazardous chemicals into the air and soil, further damaging ecosystems and threatening public health. The environmental cost of our clothing choices is far greater than we often realize. For countries like Ghana, the impact of clothing waste extends far beyond environmental pollution. It creates a cascade of social and economic problems. Public health risks. The burning of synthetic clothes releases toxic fumes, leading to respiratory illnesses and other health problems for local communities. Choked drainage systems. Mountains of textile waste clog drainage systems, increasing the risk of flooding and waterborne diseases. Lost dignity in a local fashion economy. The influx of cheap, discarded clothing undermines local textile industries and traditional craftsmanship, creating a dependency on foreign waste. Exploitation of waste workers. Waste workers, often women and children, earn meager wages in unsafe and unsanitary conditions, sorting through mountains of discarded clothing, exposing them to hazardous materials and health risks. The West's unwanted fashion becomes the global South's toxic inheritance, perpetuating a cycle of poverty, environmental degradation, and social injustice. This is not just an environmental issue, it's a matter of global equity and human rights. Despite growing awareness of the clothing waste crisis, the answer is not fast enough. Global textile production continues to increase, driven by the relentless demand for fast fashion. Fast fashion giants continue to release thousands of new styles each month, fueling the cycle of consumption and disposal. Greenwashing is rampant, with brands making unsubstantiated claims of sustainability while continuing to contribute to the problem. Recycling technology exists, but it's not yet scalable, and most clothes are made from a blend of materials that cannot be recycled efficiently. However, there are a few hopeful signs. Circular fashion movements. These movements are gaining ground, promoting sustainable practices such as clothing rental, repair, and upcycling. Activism and advocacy. Ghanaian activists and organizations like the OR Foundation are calling for global accountability and demanding that brands take responsibility for their waste. Legislation. Legislation like the EU's Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR, is emerging to force brands to take responsibility for the afterlife of their clothes. While these developments offer a glimmer of hope, systemic change is still slow, and fashion's wasteful machine continues to run. We need to accelerate these efforts and demand more from brands, policymakers, and ourselves. We all have a role to play in addressing the clothing waste crisis. Here are some concrete actions we can take. Buy less, buy better. Prioritize quality over quantity. Invest in durable, timeless pieces that will last for years, rather than chasing fleeting trends. Support ethical brands and transparent supply chains. Choose brands that are committed to fair labor practices, environmental sustainability, and transparency in their supply chains. Mend, swap, and upcycle instead of tossing clothes. Extend the life of your clothes by repairing them, swapping them with friends, or upcycling them into new items. Demand policy change. Advocate for policies that hold fashion brands accountable for their waste and promote sustainable practices. Donate wisely. Before donating, consider whether the items are truly reusable and in good condition. Avoid overloading systems that can't handle the volume of donations. Educate yourself and others. Stay informed about the clothing waste crisis and share your knowledge with friends, family, and colleagues. By making conscious choices and demanding change, we can collectively challenge the unsustainable practices of the fast fashion industry and create a more equitable and environmentally responsible future for fashion. The clothing waste crisis is a moral, environmental, and economic disaster that demands urgent action. From the crowded markets of Ghana to the overflowing landfills of the U.S., fast fashion's shadow touches us all. It's not just about style, it's about stewardship, justice, and responsibility. As long as the West continues to dress cheap and discard quickly, the global South will continue to pay the price. The time to rethink fashion is now, not just what we wear, but what it costs the world. We must move beyond the allure of fleeting trends and embrace a more sustainable, ethical, and equitable approach to fashion. This requires a fundamental shift in our consumption habits, a commitment to supporting responsible brands, and a collective effort to demand systemic change. Join the movement for sustainable fashion. Educate yourself further by researching ethical brands and sustainable practices. Reduce your consumption of fast fashion and invest in quality, durable clothing. Support organizations working to address the clothing waste crisis and advocate for policy changes that hold brands accountable. Together, we can create a future where fashion is a force for good, not a source of environmental and social harm. Share this message with your friends, family, and social networks to raise awareness and inspire action. Let's make a difference, one conscious choice at a time.